Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Frank Kahn-Sullivan. I'm going to be your host and guide for this 1 hour session where I have the sincere pleasure of introducing Sachin Patil from Databricks, Matt Darwin from Prophecy, and our very own CTO, Amol Malpani.
Hi, guys.
Today, we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive into low code for Databricks, how to do data transformation on the fly. This is a new capability. It's something that we're very excited about at Cloudaeon, and it's a new center of excellence that we're forming with Prophecy and with Databricks. So without further ado, let me explain who this is for. We kind of have 4 different perspectives here for our attendees. For data leaders, for CFO, for CDOs, for data engineers, for data analysts, and of course for developers and others who I like to call the data curious. So 30 seconds each, allow me to introduce Amol, CTO of Cloudaeon. Welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself to the crowd?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Amol. I'm CTO and co-founder of Cloudaeon. I'm based out of London. My journey began as a programmer when I was being given a task to write a script to move data from point A to point B at a time when ETL, ELT was not a mainstream buzzword. Over the last 20 years, I have worked in broad spectrum of technologies across data landscape. 5 years back, we founded Cloudaeon with a mission to realize the true value of data. Now, we started with 2 people. Now we are 120 data engineers specialized in data, AI, cloud technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Amol. Matt, welcome.
Hi, thanks, Frank. Yeah, I'm Matt, or Matthew Darwin, really don't mind which. I work as a technical lead with Prophecy here in the UK. I've been with the company since last August and driving forwards our presence in the EMEA space. My background, I was a SQL Server DBA for a long time before spending some time as a head of data for various companies, as well as getting into consulting as well. So I'm quite experienced across all 3 kind of major cloud platforms in the data space. And the ironic thing about joining Prophecy as a low-code ETL tool is I actually never liked low-code ETL when I was a developer for a lot of reasons that we can cover during this session. But let's say that I think that Prophecy actually solves all of those, and I would totally buy that product if I was a head of data now. So that's me.
Fantastic. Thanks, Matt. And an extra special welcome to our guest, Sachin Patil, Senior Architect at Databricks. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Sachin Patil. I'm Senior Solutions Architect in Databricks, joined 2 years back, and I'm based in London, UK. Before joining Databricks, I have spent more than 8,000 person days working on data space. That is more than 20 years, I would say. And I have seen the data space evolving from my early days in data warehousing to Gen AI now. In my current role in Databricks, I work on bringing business value to our customers from that investment on our data platform. So that's about me.
That's brilliant. Well, it's a little bit one-sided. The audience has had a chance to get to know us. We'd like a chance to get to know you a little bit better. So if you all are on Zoom, please make sure that you're not driving your car or that you're not operating any heavy machinery. Open up the Zoom chat box. I'd love to know, where have you dialed in from today? Right now, I'm in Lisbon. Amol is in London. I see that we've got a couple of people. Wow, Texas, Netherlands, Winchester, must be sunny in the UK. Farouk from Nigeria, Belgium, Berlin, Philippines. I think Philippines has got to be the furthest. Sweden, Dublin, Tiago from Portugal, Boa tarde, Antwerp, goedemiddag, bonjour. Anoop, welcome. Kavya. Oh, fantastic. So it really is quite a global audience we've got, guys. That's really wonderful. So now that we know where you're from, and we've done a little bit of user acceptance testing. You've very successfully passed 101 using a chat box. That's great. I want this session to be interactive. This is meant to be a learning exercise, not death by PowerPoint. We've got 3 fantastic technologists, speakers each with more than 15, 20 years experience in this sector. And this is a wonderful chance to learn. So the agenda, what are we going to cover, right? Part 1, we're going to look at the value of low code. I'm going to ask our panel some questions where we frame the value of low code, understand the key challenges, introduce the concept of visual development. Part 2, we're going to do a bit of a deep dive into practical use cases. We're going to get a live demo with Matt and with Amol so that you actually see. Some of us learn by doing, some of us learn by seeing. And I've given them a very interesting challenge. Do a live demo. None of that pre-canned nonsense. They're going to be doing a live demo. So fingers crossed it works, guys. I know it will. And then we're going to do a little bit of a technical Q&A. And then finally, the most interactive and fun part, what we call the 0 to 1 challenge. This is based on design thinking. This is where we think about the problem segments. You have fantastic subject matter experts here. Many of you will be in data engineering or data leadership roles. Some of you will be new to data or new to Databricks and curious about what the capabilities are. One of the best ways that we have to serve you is not just the live labs that we're running in April, but really understanding a well-crafted problem statement, defining the outcome, because let's be honest, data is large, data is complicated, but it's also very individual. One challenge for one person may radically differ from the next, and then getting to the outcome that matters. So I'm going to run a little poll now that you've been introduced to us and we've been introduced to you. Let me know if this pops up on screen. Hope it does. Right. So we've got a lot of people joining us today. This really helps us to make sure that we're tailoring the content the right way for this power hour. So let us know the closest thing to your role. It's not going to be perfect. The key challenge you're facing, and then availability dates. If you're not available in April, don't worry, just click send more info. You'll only get 1 email from us, which goes into a bit more detail. We're not in the business of spamming people here. So I'm going to leave this open for about 60 seconds just to try and get through as many people as possible. Seems like we're quite a data engineering heavy crowd, but great to see a number of other roles on here. It's a nice split. My wonderful panelists, can you see the live data coming in?
Yes.
How interesting is that?
Yeah,
Data governance, data transformation seem to be, I wasn't expecting that much of a split. That's really interesting. Okay, 45, 46, 47. All right, 30 seconds. Thank you very much for those of you who have participated in the poll already. It's super helpful for us to make sure that we're getting the message right. 10 seconds. All right, 1 minute 54 seconds. That's a completely arbitrary number, but it's good anyway. So I'm going to end the poll there, share the results. So look, you're among peers. Let me know in the chat box. Can you see the results that I've shared on screen? Is that popping up for you? Thank you, Praveen. Frankie, the raise hand Q&A function isn't going to work because we're doing this live. If you've got a question, pop it in the chat box. I will try to answer questions as we go along. So look, we've got a pretty even split around roles, except for data engineering. More than half of you are in data engineering roles. 66% of you have mentioned the key challenge is data transformation, but of course this was multiple choice. Some of you may be wondering, how do I share data effectively? How do I improve governance and compliance? Some of you have selected other. I have no idea what other key challenges you may have, but this is meant to be data specific. And thank you for answering about the live lab. And Frankie, thanks for the comment there, just trying to thumbs up. You have an excellent name, by the way. Us Frankie's got to stick together. Good. So, shall we jump into part one? Part one, the value of low code. Matt, I'm going to pick on you first. What is low code for the uninitiated, and why is it valuable?
Yeah, so so low code would be the ability to write code without actually typing letters, words, code in a screen. So I'm going to use icons and components within a GUI to actually drag on what I want to do. So if you take the idea of low code in the data space, I might be dragging in data sources, dragging in a screen to help me do some transformations with that I'm guided through, and dragging those into sources. I might also be looking at dragging through a logical workflow of these in terms of a orchestration workflow. So do this pipeline, do that pipeline, do both of those in parallel, and then once they're both completed, do this pipeline. So that's what low code is. In terms of how that adds business value, essentially we all know that data engineering is quite a high skill practice. You need to have spent a lot of time understanding both data architecture, code, the data, and the business in your particular role. And data engineers are expensive. It costs a lot to find and hire data engineers. So what we really want to do is be able to allow non-data engineers to build data pipelines, but in a manner that they provide quality code for their business. So we want to be able to enable our skilled data engineers to provide the tooling for those non-data engineers to actually get the business data decisions that they need to do. Because let's face it, no business has data for the sake of it. They have data to use it for competitive advantage.
I think it was interesting to see that 97% of an organization's data has been created in the last 2 years. And Gartner kind of sees this proliferation, well, according to Gartner research, take that with a pinch of salt if you want, but it was quite a persuasive article saying that it's not just the proliferation of unstructured data, it's that there's an increased almost political push or cultural push now to get value from data, not just monetize it, but get value from that. Amol, you introduced yourself as starting your career as writing a script to move data from over there to over here, turning them big rocks into little rocks. How would you frame the value of low code? You're running hardcore, you're running our center of excellence, hardcore data engineering. Do you think low code is going to put us out of business?
Not really. And I think this is a good question if you see that, okay, is it low code going to put out of us a business? Because we evolving every time we see the new technology comes in. As a technologist, I kind of embrace any new technology which is kind of helping businesses move forward. They get the competitive advantage by doing things which is kind of taking this less amount of time. So I think the low code is a kind of a very useful for a greater and a quicker ROI. So that's what businesses want, and we need to adopt to the business needs. So I think that's perfect.
So we've got a really cool tool, the Prophecy platform that we're going to start getting into. We don't see low code as a threat. We actually see it as a way to supercharge our team, the engineers that service enterprise accounts. Sachin, from the Databricks perspective, how do you guys internally see the value of low code? Right, you've got partners like Prophecy, you've got partners like Cloudaeon that are really active in moving data in and around Databricks. How do you see the value of low code?
Yeah, at Databricks, we are now in a journey to democratize data and AI for the entire organization. And the entire organization means the data leaders, the data engineers, data analysts, and so on. And one of the vision statements, if you read it, it should be simple to operate, it should be accessible to everybody, and it should be secure. Now, on that, when we talk about simple to operate, accessible to everybody, there are different personas. There are personas who are like hardcore codies, and there are personas who are like data analysts, data leaders, and bringing that very strong price performance Databricks engine to everybody. That's the key. And that's where Prophecy helps us, where the people who don't need to know even the SQL, as Matt was saying, they can just use drag and drop and get value out of their data. They can do entire data transformations, build whatever they want to build, and visualize it.
And I think one of the key challenges that kind of the three of you address together as a combined value proposition is that it doesn't really matter whether SQL is your starting base or Python, right? Being able to generate really good Spark code or PySpark through this this code generator, through this visual development approach, moving data in and transforming it and seeing it at each step. I think that's a really important capability that companies need to build in order to start activating their data, not just having it stored for the sake of storing it. So let's move on. The key challenges. Amol, 30 seconds. We've discussed extensively standards for interoperability and portability. Where do you see the top three challenges for enterprise data management at the moment?
I think it's like if you see, because in last few years we kind of evolved quite fast compared to last 10 years. Like we had a data warehouse and then it was there for a long time with the different technologies, but then you could call them all data warehouse. And after that, we kind of moved quite fast to the data lake, lake house, and then the different tools like Databricks, Snowflake, Synapse came into the market. And that kind of changed the complete dynamics, how we used to do the ETL and ELT. And then I couldn't agree more with Matt. Like he hate low code. So maybe we started doing as I mentioned, I started doing my data transformation using writing a script. Then the drag and drop tool came in, and they were there for 10, 20 years. But now the landscape has completely changed with the data lake house, and it needed a new way of doing this transformation. And that's where we started writing the script again, which kind of interests some of us who were there in the business for like 20 years to kind of do the data transformation. But if you see from a business point of view, the challenge remains the same. If you again going back 20 years, then actually you kind of gone backward, not forward. And that's where there's a key challenge is you need to create these transformation at a speed and at a very standardized way, because you couldn't be writing the script like 10 people writing the different script for doing the same thing again and again. It's no better value generation out there. And that's where this tool like Prophecy could completely change that. It gives you the flexibility to write something very fast and allow you to change also. So you can even do the drag and drop. At the same time, you can write some script also and make it more standardized. So I think that if I want to kind of pick up one of the greater challenge, I would say speed and the standardization. These are the two main challenges, yeah, which Prophecy could solve.
I think that's very well articulated. We're going from one data engineer writing a single script to be run once to kind of making, data engineering and data analytics a team sport where you've got reusability of the components, you've got a standardized approach, and ultimately these are productivity tools. It's like a knife. You can chop bread or you can stab someone. It's how you use it. So, Matt, thinking about these key challenges around speed, productivity, security, I guess there's a kind of perspective now. Would you see prophecy as a tool to orchestrate data, or do you see it as a tool for transforming data and running those pipelines?
Yeah, so prophecy covers three sort of key areas. And really it's two areas that are linked by one. So one of the challenges that a lot of organizations have had is adopting more of a medallion architecture. So we want to be able to bring data in to a data lake in its raw format, so that we are able to hold that to use it for future purposes. You know, if we make a mistake in transformation, we can correct that at future points in time. So if you think of the medallion architecture, that completely enables this. We have on our bronze layer just the raw data, so we can reprocess that. On the silver layer, we now have curated, standardized, transformed data. So this is the data itself rather than the coding practices where we're talking about standards. So the data is now deemed safe to use in our organization. And then on the right-hand side, you'll have more of your gold layer, and this is where we're actually consuming that data for business purposes. So prophecy brings together both the left-hand side of producing that standardized data and the right-hand side of then using that data. And this is where we have both Spark pipelines that can be written in Python or Scala via the low-code interface, or SQL pipelines that will connect into, say, Unity Catalog on Databricks and allow analysts to do that last mile ETL without having to bother a data engineer. And I say bother a data engineer because that's what happens. Most data engineers spend, 60 or 70% of their time actually doing tasks that could be achieved by almost anybody. They're repetitive tasks. They're not the fun, creative parts of data engineering. And so we also overlay those two types of pipelines with low-code orchestration via either Databricks workflows or Airflow, depending on which you want to use. So this is where you can start to piece together the full end-to-end pipeline of loading data through to it actually being consumed and populating the data source for a dashboard or for a report or for a piece of analysis or something in your application. So I think, we cover the whole ecosystem.
I think we're starting to see this movement, right? This adoption of anything that improves productivity, democratizes access to data sources, and that can make the data analyst job easier or speed up the data engineering jobs that nobody really wants to do more than once. I think there's a tremendous mind-boggling mind fog that comes from having to turn big rocks into little rocks and having to continuously, redo these little things. So there's the role for automation, there's the role for the activation of data from source to destination, and then prophecy as a platform just makes it 10 times quicker and easier to generate really good Spark code, and more importantly, to see the steps of transformation. So we framed the value, we've talked about the key challenges, we've talked about this evolution from one script, one person to run once, to this idea of reusable components, really speeding up how good code gets generated. Amol mentioned a good point. It's not just about writing code faster, it's about writing good code that helps surface the right data. So Sachin, would you like to round off the panel? Databricks has clearly emerged as one of the market-leading cloud data platforms, right? Unity Catalog, the Lakehouse architecture. This has been a while coming, and Apache Spark has really matured over the last 10 years as a technology, as a stack, but also a movement. How would you frame the business case for our audience, right? So if I'm thinking about using Databricks, or I've got a lot of different data needs. Maybe I'm already using Databricks, maybe I'm thinking about getting into it, but I need that little bit of a push. I need to go back to my boss and say, why prophecy, why Databricks, why Cloudaeon? How would you frame that from the CDP side?
So if I have to combine, let's say, Cloudaeon, Prophecy, and Databricks, I would say these are the best of the worlds. And when I say best, it's the B stands for, let's say, business value for the customers. Now, these customers are doing like improving the end customer experience or new business opportunities, new opportunities for the revenue. That's what the B stands for. And the second is economy. E stands for economy. And when you are doing that, you need a really strong platform, the Spark engine with Photon. And what we have seen is it gives the best price performance for this data platform. And that comes from this economy. The third is the skill. Now, not everybody is skilled at the same level. There are data engineers, the coders, there are the leaders, and bringing that data platform, the ease of use to everybody, that's where the skill comes. And Prophecy and Cloudaeon can help on that. And the last one is the speed or time to market. The T stands for time to market. And use of Prophecy and Cloudaeon team, what we have seen is most of these engagements, instead of running for 6 months or 9 months, can you do that in 3 months? Yes, that's the value that three of us can bring.
The BEST simply is the best. I really hope you don't mind us stealing that, Sachin. That's a brilliant way to round off the business case. So, max 30 seconds, key takeaway from part one, the value of low code. Amol.
I think it's like if you see the key takeaways, I would also like want to kind of bring in a new perspective here, which is AI. We hear a lot about AI now, and then every business leader, if you see these the McKinsey's report, like the 67% of the business leaders want to implement the AI, but when they go back to kind of implement the AI, they do not see a proper strategy on return on investment. And if you see like the tools like Prophecy and then the Databricks and the Cloudaeon, if we combine together, we can rather than the months, we can do something in a weeks, and then maybe you got your data ready for running your AI hypothesis. So that's kind of a the win-win situation. Yeah.
You get the jazz hands because you're at 31 seconds, but I've also everyone's going to jump on you. We were playing buzzword bingo. You mentioned AI. I thought we'd get to at least half an hour through the webinar before somebody mentioned AI, but that's okay. Frankie, you can't really tag Amol on Zoom. It's just a bit of fun. Sachin, 30 seconds. Summarize your key takeaways from the value of low code.
First thing is just time to market. Time to market, accessible, and simple to operate. These are the three things I would like to focus on. And when it comes to Prophecy, the key differentiator that I have seen is instead of just having some UI, it generates a Spark code. It's integrated with your Git, and the entire the DevOps, MLOps, or the CI/CD practices are implemented. That means it's production ready. It's not something which you just drag and drop and it's not ready for production. So that's how I would summarize. And that's where Cloudaeon can help us to bring all the best practices.
Matt, 30 seconds.
Yep. So efficiency and enablement. So firstly, it's efficient. You can create pipelines much quicker than you would do. You don't also have to worry about maintaining frameworks that you build. Will be maintaining the underlying code within Prophecy. But the second one is more important. It's enablement. As I said before, data engineers are expensive and they're a premium to both find and hire. So if you can use that resource effectively to enable other people in your business to actually deliver data products, then that's a huge win. And Prophecy certainly does that, especially over Databricks.
Now we've got a question here. The golden question: how much does the Prophecy platform cost? Well, I'm going to answer that first of all by saying price is what you pay, value is what you get. If you want a free trial for Prophecy, we will set you up with one after the webinar if you stick around for 2 minutes. So KV, I can't see your full name. Kanthi, you asked how much it costs. Stick around. The answer is free. So moving into part two, the demo and the use cases. my little witticism will make
Okay,
sense
yeah.
shortly as we taxi over to Matt and Amol. Matt, I've made you co-host. You should have full screening potential now. I'm going to give you guys 10 to 12 minutes for the demo. Matt is one of the technical leads with Prophecy. Amol is our CTO and voice of the customer here. So I'm going to hand over to them for this awesome live demo. I wish you the best of luck. Dennis Benka, you've raised your hands. I don't know if that's because you're trying to give me a high five, in which case, high five. Great to meet you too, like Frankie. Or if you genuinely have a question, pop it in the chat box. We have some Cloudaeon and some Prophecy and Databricks team members here on standby to jump on your questions. So if you would like, if you want a free trial, if you want a live lab, or if you want to come play around afterwards, pop it in the chat box. Mention your name. Don't share your email address because GDPR. But just say what you want, and we will definitely get on that. Okay, Matt and Amol, over to you.
Brilliant.
Thanks.
So basically, what you can hopefully see on the screen right now is part of the Prophecy UI. I'm in the middle of a project. I've cheated slightly. I've created some bits of this already because of time constraints. But what we're going to do is we're going to build out a couple of pipelines for you live online. I'm going to make some typing mistakes, which you can all laugh at. But we'll see where we go. And we're using everybody's favorite everybody's favorite data set, the New York City taxi data. So if you're familiar with the New York City taxi data, you'll know that there are a couple of different types. One is the green taxi data. Another is the yellow taxi data. And they're almost the same schema, but there are some slight differences in there. So I've already created a pipeline, or at least start of a pipeline to start populating the green taxi data. I'm going to create a new one to import the yellow taxi data. Amol, you had a question?
No, so I just, Matt, before we kind of, while you're creating that, maybe if we can briefly tell that what they are seeing on the screen, like on the left-hand side, or maybe you can kind of mention while you're creating that.
Yep. So on the left-hand side, you can see our pipelines. We've got the green taxi raw pipeline. We've got some weather data, which hopefully we'll get time to get onto because that's really cool. And we've got the New York City taxi zones. That one's already finished, done, and loaded. And you can also see the data sets that we have already populated. So we've got the green taxi raw data already populated, some weather data source and zones, etc. So I'm going to create a new pipeline here for my yellow taxi raw data. So this is going to be a batch job, and I'm going to create that away. And this is going to take me to the canvas. So this is the development canvas within Prophecy.
That's where magic happens.
This is where the magic happens. So one thing to note is this top right-hand corner here. You can see that I'm attached to a Databricks cluster. If I click this here, that will actually take me through into the Databricks workflow. So everything that we're running here is running on Databricks as the compute. Prophecy does not do the compute for you. It's all on Databricks in this example. Yep.
Quick question. Can the compute be abstracted somewhere else? For example, if they're running Azure?
Yep. Yes, so we can run against Azure Synapse, we can run against Google Dataproc, etc. I just don't like mentioning that because we've got Sachin here. So we're talking about Databricks today. So I now have my empty project window. And what I'm going to do to begin with is I'm not going to start with any of our gems, which are what we call the low code components across here. I'm actually going to start with some config. So this is where we talk about actual creating best practice for our pipelines. So I'm going to make sure that this pipeline is not a one-time thing. It's going to be something that I can reuse over and over again. So I'm going to create a taxi type parameter. I'm going to create a year parameter, and I'm going to create a month parameter.
And correct me, Matt, these all parameter you're calling it as a config because it's just to make your pipeline dynamic, right? So you could kind of use it for the, perfect.
That's correct, yeah. So this is I'm going to then pass in. I can come over here and I can create multiple new configurations, and I can also pass these in at runtime as well. So I can pass different values in here. And the reason that we have year, month, and yellow in here is my actual path for my data lake. So I've already loaded the raw data into my Databricks file system. I have it partitioned in that way, as you would imagine having a partition set up in your actual data lake. So I'm now going to create a data source. So I've grabbed that from my source and target widget here, and I'm going to open that up and create a new data set. So this one is going to be the yellow taxi raw data set. And it comes in Parquet data, which is great because it means I've got less work to do in terms of actual processing that. And I'm going to grab my Parquet file format from here. So then when I come to the location, sorry, go ahead, Amol.
No, that's fine. So I think it's
Yep.
like, yeah. While you were doing is like, I think it's one of the question was there because everything what you're creating, you can create a versioning of this pipeline. You can kind of push it to the gate. So you're not kind of making someone work go away, or maybe you can maintain a proper versioning also. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now I'll show some of the Git integration in a moment. So here we've got our NYC taxi data through the raw yellow 2024-01, my file in there. So I could have that as the location, but obviously that's hard coded. So I'm going to paste in my previously created version. And you'll see here, this is where I'm injecting those parameters that I had before. So the taxi type, the year, the month, to dynamically go through that. So as I change them and as I load more data in, I can incrementally load this into my target data set and run this pipeline over and over again. So I'm going to go through to the properties, and this is where I need to configure the schema. Now, what's really cool is that I can just use Databricks to infer the schema for me by clicking the Infer Schema button, and that's going to run a quick job that's going to populate all of my columns here from my Parquet format, and it'll work with, you know, JSON data. It can be structured and so on, and we'll hopefully get to show you some of that later. A couple of other cool things that I can do from the AI capabilities is I can start to add in automatic descriptions of my data here. I can, you know, use the AI to say, what's this going to be? And everybody knows that we should add this description, this metadata into our tables, but nobody ever does it. So if we can have something written there already, it's far easier to change that to what you need it to be than to start from scratch. And then once that's done, we can hit preview and have a quick preview load of our data, which is going to show us what that starts to look like.
And Matt, we are running this on how many rows? Like 3 million plus rows, right?
Yeah, I think there's 3 million rows in the data set here, but you'll see that we automatically just pull through the top 50 as we're running this. This is just a sample set at that point in time. I'm not running a huge job at this point. So we've now got our source data. Now we need to do a little bit of transformation on this data. There are actually some columns in this that are not consistent between the two green and yellow data sets. So I'm going to grab a reformat gem and open that up. And you'll see here now I can start to create some new structures out of this data. So I'm going to quickly add all of the columns in there. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to just change these because the actual pickup date time and drop off date times are different for each file for some random reason. So we want those consistent to pickup date time and drop off date time. And then the second thing is that we don't actually have this airport fee at all in the green data set. We've got some different columns. So I'm going to create a new column called additional information, and I'm going to put in a very, very basic mapping function to add in the airport fee because I want to retain that data. I just don't want it to be its own column because it won't exist with the other data. So this additional information is now going to be a map of various key value pairs of that data going forwards.
And the same way, Matt, we can add some regular expressions and then kind of format the column. Perfect.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's lots of stuff that you can do within there. And we have many different types of transformations that you could, you can think of using. We've got aggregations, we've got flattening schemas and so on. So hopefully we'll get a chance to show you some of those in a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, as Sachin mentioned, one of the really cool things about Prophecy is behind the scenes, all of this is just code. So I can switch between the visual window and the code window and actually have a Python project or a Scala project if you're using Scala with all of my code in it. And this is what's going to get checked into your Git repository. It's what you're going to use to build a wheel or a jar to actually deploy out in production. You can set tests up on it and so on. And every single Prophecy built pipeline will have this pipeline method, which effectively contains a function for each one of those individual bits of the pipeline. So you'll see here, I've got my DF yellow taxi raw. I can open that up and look at what's happening here. And you can see this is my actual function. It's very limited in this case. It's not doing an awful lot. Same with the taxi reformatting. I've got that code available there. So I can take this completely outside of Prophecy and run this on my Databricks cluster if I want to. I can import the built wheel into my Databricks cluster and run it from there. And also, I can start to publish this up. And if I've got reusable components in here, I can share them between different packages. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add a schema transform. And I'm going to add in 3 new columns.
And Matt,
these...
while you're doing that, it's like the same thing you could have been able to do it in the previous step, but as a standard practice, we always kind of try to kind of put the small chunks of activities. So therefore, it gives more flexibility. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the idea here is what I'm trying to do in my pipeline from a visual perspective is make it really clear what I'm doing logically. So each one of those functions, I'm taking the functional programming paradigms to have it do a single unit of work. So I can test that unit of work very easily. Whereas if I'm doing lots of different things in that single gem, creating tests for that becomes harder. And also it's a lot more complex to understand if something goes wrong. And what I'm doing here is I'm adding in those parameters that actually come from the partition of my data, which are not columns already. So I'm adding in the taxi type, the year, and the month, saving that away. So the final step is that I need to now load this into a table.
Matt, we got a really good question here, actually, that's relevant from Anthony. Is the versioning of the assets and pipelines and data sets built inside Prophecy, or can you also refer to, for example, Azure DevOps repos?
So the versioning, I'll show you in a second. I'll come out of here and I'll show you the actual integration with Git. So this is code. This is not the data versioning. So if the question is around the data itself and versioning of that data, you will control that in your pipelines and the logic that you're putting in for it. For the actual code components of this, then yes, they will all be completely versioned from within your Git repository. Think of a Prophecy project as a Git repository. That, you know, that it's not even like it's something that check in. It is the Git repository.
Right. If anyone has any questions as we go along, I'll make sure that we have a Q&A at the end. Pop your questions or your observations in the chat box, like we've done for Anthony. I'll promise we'll try to get to them at the end. Sorry, Matt.
That's all right. I'm just trying to whiz through this as well as we go. So I'm now creating my target, and you'll see here I'm going to pop this into a processed file location. So I'm connecting into my Unity catalog. You'll see this is done automatically. I'm automatically pulling through the actual the schemas that exist in there. I'm going to create a table called combined taxi data, and I'm going to pop that into this file location here. And then when I go through to the properties, you can see I've already got my metadata pulled through from my vendor ID column. I could do the same for the others and add that in as I go. I've got my taxi type, my year, and my month. And on this left-hand side, I can now control the provider, which is going to be Delta in this case. I can choose my write mode. So I'm going to be writing out partitions here that the NYC taxi data is month-based. And I'm going to add in a partition. So let's add in the taxi type, the year, and the month as part of my partition column and create that data set. So I'm going to automatically be partitioning this data now by those values. So this is where, sorry, go ahead, Amol.
No, sorry, Matt. So I think it's like the way we showcase that year and the taxi type and the month, but then the same thing can happen for incremental also. So the way you said override, but then we can do the incremental, merge, all that thing is possible.
Absolutely. And hopefully I'll get a chance to show you some of that in a moment. So we did have a question around the Git integration. So you can see here that I clicked into the commit button within the Git integration, and you can now see all my previous commits within that particular project. You can see the entities that I currently have and those that have changed. I can switch this over to see which files have been changed. If I wanted to, I can reset that and roll back, or I can commit this. And we automatically populate a commit message with the components that have changed. And I can put something else in here. So let's put in webinar demo commit. As I commit that, This is going to commit this into my dev webinar branch. I can then choose to continue to release that into my production branches. So here I'm actually a change behind, so I would need to pull that in. And then I can go through and merge that into my main branch and kind of go forward from there. So we'll come out of there and I'll show you that. But that's how the integration works. And that can be connecting to your GitHub, to your GitLab, to your Azure DevOps. It could be connecting to Bitbucket. It could be connecting to your on-premise Git if you want to use that. So we've now got our pipeline created here, and I can run that through to any particular portion of the pipeline to preview that data, as you'll see, and you'll get this kind of handy description of the jobs that are running. As I say, this is actually quite a large data set. There's around about 3 million rows in there, so this might take a moment or two to run. So as we're doing that, I'll go back to the code. So you can see now that we've got the advanced increment of those additional functions in our code, and all of the different functions have been created across here while this runs through.
Yeah, I think when we're seeing this code, Matt, like, because Spark is always kind of the power of Spark comes from the cache memory and then the RDDs. But I think it's like, this is very simple pipeline. When in the production environment, when we're helping our customers, there are kind of multiple things happening at the same time.
Yep.
And there are some situations where you need to kind of run 4 things before the 5th thing start. I think that we can do easily in Prophecy as well, right? So just to kind of true nature to Spark.
Yeah, that's correct. So if I look at the components for a particular gem here, you'll see that I can choose to cache it. I can change the phase that we're running for when this particular gem is running, and I can add conditions in there to say actually only run this when certain things happen. Yeah. The other thing that you'll see is I could have had the green taxi data and the raw taxi data in the same pipeline and have 2 sources here, combine those together and load it into the same target at once. Now, that seems attractive from a certain point of view of looking at a pipeline all in one place. But if you think of orchestration, when I'm running this, you'll see this is actually taking a little bit of time to run. So what I would have then is if I have a failure, I've now got to either unpick what's been done if I've written out to multiple sources at the same, multiple targets at the same time, or I've got a failed pipeline and I've got to do all of that work again. Whereas if I break things down more into these components of the pieces of work that need doing, what I can do then is have these orchestrated, and I'm going to show you that in a second. I can have these orchestrated so that they would run in parallel. So you'll see here, I've got my, my finished pipeline now. I've run this up as far as this. I can have a quick sample of the data. So you can see that's our additional information that we added. I've not added in the additional columns at that point. I don't think it's the next gem to be run. So I can run that through and query that data as, and view that data as I'm going. So if I flip over to my green taxi data now, you'll see here, 2 minutes. Yeah. We'll be as quick as we can here. So if I flip over to my green taxi data and run that from here, you can see I've got an almost finished pipeline. So in this case, I just want to very quickly show you the additional information column here. So I've got a completely different map in there from my particular pipeline here. And the actual ordering of the columns was different. So I've standardized this. And now I can take that same data set that I created, have this as a target gem rather than a source, and join that in. And that's automatically done. It's using the exact same configuration as I had before. You see, I've already got my catalog table. I've already got my combined taxi data table created. And I've got my properties with the partitioning already enabled. So that's all done for me. I don't have to do that again. That's completely reusable. So when we run this pipeline and load that data up, we know what we've got going from here. So I want to very quickly show you the jobs. So this is the orchestration side of things. So we're going to call this a test job for the moment. So I told you I'd do some bad typing. We have the choice of either a Databricks workflow or Airflow. So I'm going to choose Databricks here just because it's a little bit simpler. And then I can choose the size of cluster that I want to run this against along with my schedule. And I'm going to just set this to run monthly at 12 p.m. Save that away. And I can set alerts and so on as you would expect. So now once I have this done, I can then start to actually configure the orchestration of these pipelines in a way that makes sense for me. So I want to always load the zones first. Then I want to load my green and yellow data sets in parallel. And then maybe I want to run my weather data at the end. And so I can start to create those automated jobs very, very quickly. When I click this enable button, this is going to go away and create that as a Databricks workflow on my Databricks cluster. And alongside that, I can do things like adding custom scripts here as well. So if I wanted to pass something in that created a set of variables that we're running through. So if you think of the config items that I was talking about, I might want to have those passed in dynamically. I can set those in there and so on. So there's one final thing that we want to show you with this. So this is all well and good from the engineering side, but what we really want to see then is the enablement from the analyst point of view. So if I come through now into an analyst perspective, I can now have low-code SQL coming through where
60 seconds, Matt.
where I'll come into my environment. So this is my Databricks warehouse at this point, and I can drag in these tables onto the canvas, which is not working for some reason right now. Let me get rid of that. Oh, it's because I haven't gone into the model. I'm in the wrong screen. So I can drag these into my canvas, live demos, and then start to join these up to actually do some low-code SQL within them. And we're going to kill that off here. And this is going to start to create a particular model that I can reuse. So I might want to look at, say, joining from my location idea with my pickup location. So we'll have the IN0 location, pickup location equals my IN1 location ID. So this is where I'm going to join in that borough information from a dimension and so on, and have this as a reusable model. What I can do then is
I do apologize, Matt.
That's all right.
We've got to take a hard stop there.
That's absolutely fine. No problem at all.
That was a very, very powerful demo. So I think everybody in the chat box, if we can, a virtual round of applause for Matt and Amol. That was to do that live in under 12 minutes. I think that's very impressive. Thank you, Matt.
Cheers. You're absolutely welcome.
So, look, we've got 5 minutes to go, and we will keep this webinar open. We're going to stop recording at 4 o'clock, but if anyone wants to stay for an additional 10 to 15 minutes, we will stick around in order to answer questions. We'll stop the recording and we'll do more of a personal, smaller group. So, to continue on with part 3, we're going to run an accelerated version here. You're going to have to do it yourself. The 0 to 1 challenge between now and the live labs, we're running 4 live labs with Prophecy and Cloudaeon and Databricks throughout April, which is a fantastic free opportunity to do a bit of a deep dive into your use case and your challenges. But in order to make that really effective, we're going to teach you a little tool based on design thinking. Craft a clear problem statement, define the goal with a measurable outcome, validate your assumptions and hypothesis, and then take that back to your business. Some of you may recognize a little bit of influence from the Lean Startup. Some of you may recognize a little bit of design thinking from the Google's rapid prototyping methodology. It all comes down to the same thing. Be really clear, become an expert in the problem before you jump into the solution. Maybe Prophecy, Databricks, and Cloudaeon is not the answer. Maybe the engineering culture sucks in your company and you've got so much technical debt that you'll never solve it yourself, in which case I'll post a link to our careers page. We'd love to hear from you. But maybe you really do understand the problem. Maybe you do have a measurable outcome. Maybe you do have a good way of validating your hypothesis. So we're going to get into problem statement number 1. And I really want you to carefully note down this format. As a, insert role, I need to, I want to, in order to. As a data engineer, I need to join multiple tables on the fly in order to provision a useful data set, which benefits my data analyst colleagues by enabling them to consume the right data set and visualize it. I realize this is a bit formulaic, but it really helps us to think about being clear on a problem statement, if only for the reason that clarity of a problem statement and using design thinking at this phase helps our non-technical colleagues really get it. If you've got finance analyst, a product designer, a product manager, 2 developers, 1 data engineer, right? They'll all have different views and different levels of understanding. And the one thing that can create consensus where everyone has the same understanding of the problem statement, the problem that you're trying to solve. Let's go again, something less technical. As a vice president of sales, I need to see my regional sales of the week in order to decide which promotions to run, which benefits the company, by attracting more customers to close a deal with a specific promotion, right? This is very businessy language. This is very sales department language. But if you broke that down as a data engineering, data analyst problem, you'd see a couple of components. See, it happens every week. Okay, that's not a one-off, that's a batch job. Which promotions to run? Okay, that probably means customer data and transaction data. One may sit in SAP, the other one may sit in Salesforce. It benefits lots of people. There's a very clear revenue objective. So this may be a problem statement for a VP of sales, but it is very much a challenge for us. It is the data engineering and data analyst question. Or problem statement example number 3, something I wrestle with on a weekly basis. As a CMO, I need to target customers with higher intent in order to retarget them with advertising. So I need to match mobile advertising IDs with customer propensity scoring in our CRM, for example, which benefits our sales team. Why? Because instead of paying lots and lots of money to convert people online with low intent, I'm taking the top segment of high intent leads that are more likely to convert into a closed won opportunity. So here, as data peers, data engineers, data leaders, data analysts, now you're starting to develop a language that allows you to talk to your non-technical peers and get consensus straight away, right? The problem statement format, you can take a screenshot of this or come back to the video. We will be publishing this shortly, but think about it. As a role, I need to, objective, pain point, in order to achieve an outcome, and the benefit can be quantified and felt by my colleagues. Think about that format. Then you'll go on to define your goals and the outcomes, but it all starts with being really clear on the problem statements. So we're at 4 o'clock. I'm going to take, if anyone needs to drop off, I understand. Let me take 2 minutes now in the chat box using the problem statement formula. Tell us, what is the big thing holding you back? I want this to be a little bit of peer-to-peer, so we'll learn from our peers and colleagues' problem statements, right? So as a data engineer, what do you need to achieve? Or on behalf of your business, maybe a key project that you're working on, what is the #1 problem that you're trying to solve? Sachin, Amol, and Matt, I think you've done an outstanding job. We're going to stop the recording here, but on behalf of the Cloudaeon crew and all of the attendees, I wanted to thank you for giving up your time today. You've been really amazing panelists. Matt, the demo was exceptional. Amol, thank you for helping us be the voice of the engineer. And Sachin, you're the best, the BEST. Thank you very much for joining us. If anyone needs to drop off, we understand. We're going to stop the recording here.